Update here from the regular big business IT craziness, and I have some update for this ridiculous Apple App Notarization stuff. I made another live stream already quite some months ago about this nonsense, and I really want to call this out here because it's just, in my opinion, complete useless garbage probably. But as usual, leave me in the comments below what you think. How did we arrive here? So this notarization is for when you not sell it through the App Store, but give it to customers directly. And starting with Mac with Catalina, you now need to notarize this. And this is going live now. How do I know this? Because customer wrote us an email, and I called this also out already. I find this hilarious in the meantime. No kidding, over 100 emails we got the last 4, maybe even already 8 weeks, something of that sort. Over 100 emails. Hey, your app does not work with Catalina. It's like, it's beta, right? I called this out already. Normal people should not use this. It's so buggy. Even I myself don't want to use it. It's hilarious in my opinion. And yeah, that is a state of IT in 2019. People run beta operating systems. And today customer wrote me, I sent him the latest build, and he said, yeah, but it doesn't start. It's like, what do you mean it doesn't start? We like fixed the crash that Apple caused it doesn't start. It's like, yeah, it doesn't start. Yeah, I can't test it. It's like, hey, wait a second. Like, what do you mean by this, right? And then he's sent a screenshot similar to this one here. Not overnight text editor, but Exact Scan Pro app is an app downloaded from the internet. Are you sure you want to open it? Or something of that sort. Actually, I think it was slightly different, but whatsoever. And of course, then I replied, yeah, but excuse me, that is not doesn't start. This is just Mac was asking you, do you want to run this test build straight from our build server, right? But yeah, users in 2019, they can't even click the yes, I really want to open it button. They just waste our time with, yeah, it doesn't start. It's hilarious. Anyway, so this has gone live now. This changed the last weeks, or I don't know since, because I'm not personally running this buggy beta software for any reasonable stuff. So I don't know since when this started precisely. I'm not sure if it's already for a week or 2 or 4 or 8, but some more details here. So first of all, on Mac Rumors here, I found this accidentally just today. This is just September the 3rd. Apparently they relaxed here the transition a little bit, making it easier until January 2020. Apparently they allow a couple of more stuff like, oops, no, clicked here. Let's hope I didn't change. Yeah, of course I changed that. Yeah. So they apparently allow a couple of more things, which is also an indication of what is coming, right? So Apple, for not really too many good reasons, in my opinion, will lock down what they allow. Because again, for this notarization, we send, or like every developer needs to send each full application, which for our exact scan is only, well, compressed, it's like 18 megabyte. Yeah, maybe it's like sending then 80 megabytes, so 18, so like 20 megabyte. To Apple, our application, of course, relatively small and minimal. If you have like some huge things, then you are sending some 100 of megabyte. If you have some Adobe Photoshop or something of that sort. Each time you want to approve some build for your users, you send it to Apple for notarization. It's hilarious. We could just write secure software, stable software, like a microkernel and like a really nice runtime that doesn't crash or something, but we need to, instead we notarize apps. So you see it doesn't have hardened runtime capability enabled. So some new runtime for macOS. And then, so apparently only until next January, right? And then I'm also not really sure how this affects third-party scanner drivers. Maybe that will be another nightmare for us, because apparently everything becomes a nightmare now. Can't even develop regular proper software. You need to fight on each end with everything. And his components not signed with your developer ID or whatever. Although not really sure if that is an issue. You probably can always just sign everything whatsoever, but whatever. Doesn't include secured, secure timestamp. It's like, yeah, as far as I know, this is only the X code for a really long time, maybe even since actually code signatures. Xcode is contacting Apple servers, asking for a timestamp. I guess that is that not really sure what more secure of a timestamp that can be. As far as I know, all builds since I can remember, well, not really, but 6 years or 8 years, something, or even Xcode 3 or whatever. Anyway, built with an older SDK. So here you have it. So this is also hilarious, right? So Apple, maybe soon other companies follow. I find this really annoying. You are specifically developing with a slightly older SDK for some compatibility reason, and then the huge AAA Fortune 500 vendor is not signing your application anymore. You can't distribute it just because you're using last year's SDK, and includes common Apple security, get task allowed entitlement with the value set to any variant of true, whatever. Anyway, so there is some delay in that, but I wanted to also shed a light here on what is actually involved here in sending this to Apple. So you need, as I said, you need to send each bill to Apple, and this is also a little bit annoying, right? I made these videos of all the other everything broken at Apple, which unfortunately is quite a lot, and our regular bills. So we need to send those bloody bills to Apple already for the App Store, and they sometimes disappeared, right? So we had huge challenges for many months. All the bills we sent, they disappeared in dev null without I even published support email, support call, because after a year of this off and on, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. The support was always sent as a screenshot, but details, videos there below. It's hilarious. And then I fear we will have the same issue, right? We want to get a build like today, I send it to the customer and it doesn't even work there, right? And I fear this will be increasingly the issue. Also, Apple will be overloaded, right? So already the App Store review process is sending the builds is not fast, and sometimes they get lost and whatever. And this will only overload Apple servers more, right? Imagine all the other third-party developers sending even larger applications than ours there. The servers will be hammered for sure. And so what they are doing is, for one thing, they check this kind of what SDK, what kind of hardened runtime and whatever, which is of course like, yeah, by the way, I think they mostly check the XML metadata, so you probably could even spoof this. I know because I've done this in the past and it worked. But I mean, it's of course hilarious, right? It's a binary, it's a Mach binary, Mach-O binary similar to ELF. And I mean, how do they want to check which runtime this, with which SDK, which Xcode version, which compiler generated this? They can't really check this, right? Unless they have there in the Mach binary header, this is by C-lang version whatsoever. But even then, right now, they check the XML metadata. Even if they have this in the Mach header, you could still hex edit this or SED, whatever, with a sophisticated tool, you name it. Also, so what are they doing? Maybe they are doing some malware analysis. Yeah, I think the dialog that the user got today is different. This was like it's like totally misleading. The dialog the user got today was Mac OS could not check for malware, something of that sort. And this is also hilarious, right? So apparently this malware stuff they want to highlight here, but what does this scanning at Apple? So they pre-scan it once. And why does it need to be glorified cloud malware scanning on Apple servers? This is only annoying everyone. Either you make a secure OS and have a malware detection, something which actually, fun fact, Mac OS has, or not. But so instead of fixing security issues or whatsoever, they move this malware to Apple's cloud servers. I mean, what do they do there differently than they could do on macOS? It's hilarious in my opinion. And yeah, so that is what that is doing as far as I see here. So Mac apps, you can since 10.14.5 kernel extensions and beginning of 10.15. And by the way, see so much more amazing version numbers are. You specifically know what they are talking about, not Mojave or Catalina. My recurring shout out that this stupid, not even marketing, I mean bloody landmark names, can't even call this marketing names, is hilarious, because with Mojave or Catalina, you don't even know which comes first and last and whatsoever, but yeah, version numbers, amazing stuff. And so what do we need to do? I mean, first of all, we need to either use the latest Xcode. And why do I make a fuss about this? Of course, there is an integrated button. You can just use the latest version of Xcode, which, by the way, I'm already not the greatest fan of. And then there are normal Mac developers who are those developers who really love everything of Apple. And even they start to hate the latest Xcode because it's large. And I read and heard from several people who still love Apple, still trapped in the reality distortion field there, that even they complain that there are no Delta updates for Xcode, that all the Xcode updates are so long that before you take a flight, you need to make sure you loaded the latest Xcode version, which might take half an hour or 2 hours, depending on your broadband connection there to the interwebs. And why do I make a fuss about this? Because I don't like those integrated buttons. I don't like clicking those buttons like notarize with Apple, and I do not know what is happening behind the back there. And so not only, also in the past, even sending this to the App Store, it always created some like additional profiles. So usually when we tried to use this 6 years ago, it always created additional metadata there in the Xcode and created lots of chaos. So since then we did it manually in a build script. And this is also what they write here. So by the way, fun fact, they write here, prepare. So they really write here, as I just outlined before, enable hardened runtime capabilities for your app and command line targets as described in as described. And it's of course just one button, but apparently you need to enable this. Yeah, this is really annoying for us because theoretically in ExactScan, we not only theoretically support SCSI scanners, which of course nearly nobody has, but it also applies to FireWire, right? Which also is long deprecated and going out, but it still works on even Catalina, right? If you plug in a FireWire-based scanner or some whatever. But this also means if we use the latest SDKs here with this hardened runtime, we can't support those older scanners, right? I mean, this is really annoying. Not only it's change for no good reason, wasting our time and even taking features away, right? And then we need to tell the users, yes, sorry, this scanner now doesn't work anymore because Apple doesn't allow us to build with last year's SDK or previous last year's. It's, yeah. Anyway, not cool, yeah? And link against the macOS 10.9 or later SDK. Well, although this is not the oldest, but yeah, all this already doesn't support SCSI anymore. But anyway, add some entitlements. Yeah, also, I mean, yeah, you need to read, even if it's just some button, you anyway need to add some metadata. So what are these entitlements? These entitlements are XML metadata, where you have in XML in your plist, which are some XML property lists, key value pairs in Apple's macOS stuff. You anyway need to research what kind of stuff you need to enable there, what kind of entitlements, like allow execution of JIT compiled code entitlement or unsigned executable memory. And yeah, you see what kind of stuff, everything a little bit non-standard, you need to ask for permission. And they can also take it away from you, right? It can also be like on iOS, where they never allowed just-in-time compilation. Not really sure if they changed it. Maybe they still haven't allowed just-in-time compilation on the iPhone. And at least initially they haven't. And I find this really annoying, right? It's a waste of time. It's limiting flexibility of us and the customers. We cannot deliver some features like still supporting FireWire scanners for SCSI over FireWire. Goodness there of this stuff. And yeah, people have this, right? I mean, it's not like we have 100,000 or probably nearly plus minus. We have quite some customers in the world. And they also like to use their scanners, right? It's also good for the environment. So basically Apple is not only on the Mac device path deprecating Macs and at least advancing and like promoting people to buy new ones and throw the old ones, like recycle or whatever. In any case, even if they don't recycle this or still keep it as a second, they still purchasing a new Mac, even if you don't really need it, at least in any case, creates consume of many resources, raw air, earth, and all the other metals in there and whatnot, and energy fabrication and battery stuff. And then here the good details are in customizing the notarization workflow for integration in some special distribution cases. This is probably what we will be doing. This means hooking this up into your build script, whether that be some old-fashioned Makefile, some modern Manson there of open source goodness, CMake, Gem, you name it, and or some post-processing shell script of whatever packaging sort. And yeah, running there some Xcode build export archive, and then running, why do they have the Xcode build alternatively create a custom export up to probably listen Xcode, what help? I don't know. Anyway, so then create a zip archive suitable for a tool. Apparently you need to zip this. Apparently they propose here Dito, but whatever. And then what as a convenience open the folder. Why would they call open for alternative? You can put apps kernel extension. What the heck? Why do they open this? Anyway, the magic comes in here with AL tool, notarize app, primary bundle ID. And yeah, also wonder a little bit why this bloody tool. It's also a little funny with this Apple tools, right? The bundle ID is in the application, but you manually need to specify it because it's probably too lazy to unpack the zip. It's a little bit hilarious, right? The whole workflow is shitty. They could have, I understand maybe they don't want to unzip the zip there. This is why you need to specify. This also means you can accidentally send a zip to Apple with the wrong bundle ID, like another one inside, then you manually specify here. It might be easier if you just specify the path to the application bundle and the app then extracts the primary bundle ID and zips it themselves. That would probably the least error prone or most convenient, but whatever. And then of course you need some Apple username here. And what this is doing is somewhere, it says here somewhere in the documents, of course you see they are long. If you spend a couple of hours, as I said, of course, reading over this, 30 minutes gone, thinking about this, another 30 minutes gone, integrating this, testing this soon, and whole afternoon wasted. And after uploading, so this is uploading the whole bloody app, right, for some glorified cloud virus scanning, malware protection, garbage stuff there. And again, we could argue for pros and cons and whatsoever. Please tell me the pros, I don't see many. And if you have a super secure OS, I mean, first of all, I would prefer a super secure OS. It is always the most amazing, right? And even if it's like medium secure, because not microkernel, because whatever crappy C runtime whatsoever, and besides the bugs are in the OS, right? It's not protecting from bugs in the application. It's protecting against bugs in the Safari browser, downloading apps, the Finder, opening apps, and so on. And then the operating system, like breaking out of the sandbox or breaking out of the user access control list stuff there, permissions. And so this is not protecting from like this stuff of the app, but protecting against actually stuff attacking macOS and the bugs of Apple's peak bugs. And we need to jump through these hurdles here and this inconvenience only because Apple can't program. And again, it anyway needs to be secure, right? It doesn't help that Apple scans this here. I mean, make it bloody secure in the first place, but it scans this once. Maybe it's already outdated, and it also improves their verification and their virus scanner. You know, with the virus scanning, there's always some new virus ID, malware ideas of patterns of. I mean, I find virus and malware detection already snake oil because it's always trying to detect something, and the real new dangerous new stuff it doesn't detect anyway. And it needs to be secure anyway, right? The stuff can still, of course, the real dangerous malware stuff is not asking for permission. That is just in a laboratory there on someone's researcher desk, poking there in macOS, finding issues in either permission stuff and this verification, and you can be sure there were, and by the way, with Apple's peak bug, right, there were so many bugs already with this certificate verification that it's of course hilarious, right? I mean, not that we didn't try to circumvent this, but malware people certainly found quite some, even on latest Xcode or iOS actually. I mean, anyway, oops, it was also the wrong focus probably. Did I zoom out there? Maybe. Let's see, comments in the audience. Is it everything wrong with Apple video you made titled that name or a different? Is the everything wrong with Apple video you made titled by that name or a different one? I don't know. I made a couple of one. I made one with app notarization bullshit. I made Apple review genius garbage, and I'm feeling really, for me, this is really uncomfortable. It's really, it's simply not right. It's like feeling so wrong. And if you have some education, especially in computer science, like if you are doing more than clicking buttons together, because that's what you learned with Interface Builder and Xcode, and if you have a real education there, university and so on with computer science, this feels like so we have better things to do than playing with the certificate garbage. It's hilarious. Also, then I also wonder, I mean, it's not only is it like enforcement of Apple's house rules, so they basically want really 100% control, like having control over the App Store is not enough, they really want all the 100% of the control. And then it is also, I mean, this certificates often expired, right? This is additionally planned obsolescence. We had this already a couple of years ago, this master root certificate, something expired and people in the whole world, billions or at least hundreds of thousands of people couldn't run apps anymore because on some 6th of February 2014 or whenever that was, this bloody security certificate expired and people couldn't run new apps or download new apps or something of that sort. It's hilarious. And yeah, this is so wrong on so many levels. In my opinion, it's inconvenient for everyone. Also for users, you know, the Mac users, they applaud this now, like, well done, Apple, we love you so much. And next year, these are exactly the same people who next year realize, damn, I spent money for application X, Y, and Z, maybe even some 100, 200 euro for some photo image developing raw photography app or something, like Apple's Aperture or whatever they phased out there, and then they can't run it anymore, right? Even Apple's own Aperture is affected by this, and if you have a license like this, you can't run it anymore. So much to that in Windows, of course, this is mostly unheard of, and it's of course also hilarious, right? On Windows, as much as I don't like Windows for all the really crappy APIs and such, and insecurities and all the crap Microsoft has pulled over the years in terms of anti-competition and stuff, it is nonetheless at least backward compatible, right? And why not expect this? Why can big companies like Apple not keep their operating system APIs in such a state that you can run last decade's games, right? This means, unlike on Windows, that you can't run last year's applications and games and fun stuff. And I don't find this cool. Sorry, probably time for tea. I don't think it's right on so many levels, not only consumer rights and convenience, but waste of time and waste of resources for stupid certificates and glorified cloud-based malware scanning. And again, for us, it means using the latest Xcode version, which intentionally we have not done and got away with for quite some years. And this would probably mean taking those features away that, like FireWire-based scanners, then yeah, it's not in the SDK anymore. And yeah, not cool stuff. Maybe actually maybe I tried to copy just a single SDK from the actually 10.6 was maybe the like really decade old soon SDK. But yeah, and there are fine scanners, right? I just took the film scanner that I borrowed to my father. I have a very nice film scanner, and I just wanted to make support better for this. Although it has also USB, but it also has FireWire, and there are other scanners that only have FireWire. But in general, this is of course not only this; it also affects other SDKs and APIs. Comments. J American asks, "Smell my finger. What do you mean? Do you think there is a legitimate case for such software certification? Do you think there should allow advanced users to disable this on Windows? Well, I think you probably can click on allow, but most users will of course not do this, right? And the sales decrease significantly. I'm not sure how long Apple will allow us to click on the allowed anyway button, but it is of course all the Joe users. Even today, you see, just today the customer didn't even understand that he can press there on open anyway, although the dialog was a slightly different one. Let's see, Apple Mac OS malware. App something, what's it? Protect your app. Yeah, it's now you get only the Safari, malicious software. Apple checked it for malicious software and none was detected. Damage, should you move it to trash? It was something similar to this one, but obviously not so. But even this is silly, right? So this is probably the counterpart to this dialog approximately, which is also, yeah, but at least, well, certainly for the reason not to automatically run this if you download even signed malware. But again, biggest point I forgot to mention, Apple will just sign malware, right? So if you are a developer and like a malware developer, you send it to Apple, they will just sign it, right? Even if the scanning says I don't sign it, you just modify your code there a little bit differently, hide it a little bit better. Apple will just sign it eventually. It's just a matter of changing it, because you can always write additional means. I really wonder what exactly they are scanning there. Certainly some kind of antivirus patterns. And so just as usual, and there was malware, there was a lot of malware, everything perfectly signed, because even the last years, Apple already required this normal code signature. And this, but previously it was only signed locally here on this Mac and not sent to Apple. And what is new is that it's sent to Apple. And this signing, this old-fashioned signing, is relatively okay-ish. What this allows Apple is to remove the certificate. So for example, if they later find, like a month later, but there you see, they always sign it like even previously or today, and then only later they find this is malware, then they can revoke this signature or the whole certificate, the whole user, and they can track it back to whoever registered and signed it with that. But yeah, I personally don't. So as you see, this is on Windows the same, right? On Windows you can code sign or have to code sign, which we also refuse to do because it's hilarious. And none of our Windows customers ever asked us. So each time you run our Windows software, because we are cheapskates and have better things to do, you get the regular, this software is not signed. Do you any way run it from an untrusted vendor or whatever, because extra code is untrusted. And what we could simply spend money. Although I think for Windows it's slightly more expensive. You probably have to give, I only found like VeriSign or something, or whatever the names are, and they want quite some money because they know software developers can earn quite some money unless you make open source and earn nothing. And so this is why they cash in quite a bit, like 50 euro or dollar or something, or some, maybe get something for 25 or something, I don't know. But so the difference between Windows will run the app or it will show the bloody, this is not a trusted vendor certificate, is only spending 25 to 50 bucks with some additional security certificate shop. It's really selling snake oil or printing money, right? It's hilarious. And those certificate shops were caught many times by Google and whatnot, signing others people's stuff, signing wildcard certificates for banks and governments, like Norton or Symantec or whatever that might have been. So it's hilarious. The whole stuff is snake oil crap that I refuse to participate much in. And it, in my opinion, well, you see most of the stuff. So what does it help? You develop malware, you send it to Apple, it will be signed most likely. If it will not be signed, you just change it a little bit. Eventually it will be signed because you are smart. And then you have it signed, and then you distribute it. You have it infected at 100,000, if not million max. And only then Apple realizes this, and then it's too late already. It's in the wild. So in my opinion, this is only 100% control of developers and users. In my opinion, next to zero security benefit, and mostly waste of efforts. In my opinion, any effort in this would have been better spent in writing a more sophisticated operating system. And again, Apple has done nothing there, right? In nearly nothing. Tell me one thing, I can't really remember much. Since Next, and so this is not even Apple, right? So what Apple purchased the Next Step from Steve Jobs there, also nearly unsuccessful one-man distribution there. And then, since then, this is still the same Mach kernel with, again, a fun fact, everything of this was not developed at neither Next Step nor Apple. The Mach kernel was from other universities, and the BSD also, so this is Mach kernel with BSD. The biggest invention there of Next Step was, of course, the UI for the most part. So much to their credit there. But security-wise, there probably has not changed much. They have done a little bit, but not much security. Some compressed, some like delayed timer stuff there for energy efficiency. Some compressed pages, memory stuff there. Not really sure. Well, okay, they have there this system protection mode, whatever this SIP or system integrity protection mode, something, whatever that was. Comment in the audience, do you know of a way to disable outgoing internet access for specific apps? This, I think, would solve many other problems. There are apps for this, maybe this like little snitch. I personally don't use this, but yeah, actually this is a quite interesting point. This could actually indeed solve quite some issue. I proposed the same for Android, or in general some amazing mobile operating system. I actually asked for having quite some streams ago, but the same applies to a real desktop operating system, that if you have an app, for example, you have an app like YouTube, Creator Studio, whatever, and like all apps would like have to, do you want this app to connect to YouTube Studio Beta or something? Yes, allow. And even then have here, if in the pull down stuff, have here information of all the connections and data transmitted. And even if you then enable this as suspicious, I want to see details, that then of course not pre-voluntarily captured, but at least then from this point on say, okay, this is suspicious, show me from now on what is in the data there, and then you can see the data, then you would immediately see it sending contacts away or images or whatnot. That would be actually, yeah, so much cool stuff we could do, but instead we have a, well, it's a pseudo hybrid microkernel stuff there on Apple's side, which they don't use much, with not much added benefits, and like not even this features like American here proposes, but additionally this snake oil stuff, it's really set. And again, like on my other operating system streams, we really should have more advanced and really secure operating systems, and we wouldn't need to have all this antivirus scanning stuff and signatures here. And even for Windows, I said this again, like many other security researchers, in my opinion, antivirus stuff is snake oil. They, for the most part, only increase the attack surface, because even in the meantime, Windows is relatively okayish programmed, and a lot of antivirus is a little bit more hastily, sloppily clobbered together. And we had many cases where antivirus software not only caused Windows update issues or other application update issues, but additionally had security issues. So we had so many cases over the last decades, like hundreds, if not thousands, where antivirus on Windows created new security vulnerabilities than it actually solved, especially opening all the archive formats like zip, rar, and so complex, and even then including zip and tar bombs. It's hilarious. I would not even want to implement this. And then scanning all of this, matching this with signatures, there were so many buffer over underruns and whatever there. Even like Kaspersky or whatever in previous weeks, IT News being caught having some JavaScript or whatever URL code loading stuff there in all the web queries. So in my opinion, totally not worth it. Have a secure operating system, and on Windows I would only use Microsoft's basic security essential stuff there, that, well, everything else is usually even more insecure, and besides, I would really use Windows, but yeah. Anyway, hope you learned something. In my opinion, all this Mac stuff not amazing. Maybe need to see, maybe I would, because I don't really like to disable stuff in our app, I would probably try to trick, like pulling in old SDKs there manually and hope for the best and try if we can send it in. Need to check with this hardened runtime stuff there, what this is causing in our app, and external scanner drivers and USB access and I don't know what. Anyway, I hope you learned something as usual. Leave me in the comments below what you think to the situation. Always interested, maybe you have more valid reasons and ideas why this is amazing. And I hope to see you soon for all the next more amazing videos and live streams and stuff to come.